Hey everybody, welcome to Enjoy the Little Things. I'm Steve.
I'm Jared.
Yeah, you are. And this is a little podcast that we're going to start doing. And what's the point of this podcast? Well, what do you think it's about?
You didn't tell me before you started recording.
I didn't tell you?
You just dragged me into the room.
Oh, I locked the door too. You're not getting out.
Oh dear.
So, I had an idea. See, me and Jared, we talk a lot. And the other night, we had a conversation, and a little light bulb went in my head. I said something along the lines of, why can't people just enjoy things anymore? Because I brought that up because we get into a lot of arguments and debates about this movie called The Last Jedi. I'm sure you all have heard of it.
If you haven't heard it, The Last Jedi is the eighth, technically ninth movie in the infamous Star Trek franchise.
Well, you Trekkies.
Oh, you
We all know what we're
Trekkies,
doing.
listen up. I'm going to teach you a thing today.
So, we get into these arguments with these random people on Xbox Live and what have you,
Other places,
YouTube
comments,
yeah,
in general.
all that fun stuff. And, you know, we like to let them get their opinion out and tell them, because they always start off with, this is usually a common beginner of the statements, I think The Last Jedi was a terrible movie. And then our response to that is, well, why? Why do you think it's a bad movie? And then we just get the dumbest reasons.
They emasculate Poe.
They emasculate Poe.
That make all the male characters. I know we probably shouldn't start off with this, but at the same time, if you think that it's just SJW propaganda, wake the fuck up.
So, I wanted to get our opinions out there because on multiple occasions we have turned people's ideals of this movie around.
I wouldn't say that. I would say that we've definitely. There's some good points to be made because the criticisms that people echo aren't their own criticisms. They're mostly just things that they heard, they read, they heard someone else say, and they're just repeating the same shit that they said, but without knowing the reasoning behind it. And I'm going to say this right now. Neither of us think that The Last Jedi is a good or perfect movie.
No.
We both enjoy The Last Jedi because we can enjoy the little things. You see? There you go.
Wink, wink. So, the message we want to get across today is that... What was the message I had?
There are good things about these movies, and only focusing on the negative ruins your enjoyment of it.
So, we're going to start off with The Last Jedi. That's going to be our first conversation. And there's a couple main points I want to bring up. You know, we have obviously the big ones like Luke's direction.
Well, let's just start right into it. And I say we start off with the negatives of the things that we didn't like.
Okay, what didn't you like?
Okay, I'm gonna the scene with Leia is one of the worst scenes in any Star Wars movie ever.
Yeah, it was stupid. I agree.
So it was almost insulting when I saw it on the screen. The entire movie theater that I went to go see it with was just confused and angry. Moving past that, because I think everyone's talked that one to death, to be honest. The other things that I didn't like is, admittedly, when I watched it, the first time I watched it, I didn't mind the Rose and Finn side story. On second viewing, I could not stand it for the life of me.
It got boring.
It really drags the movie down, I believe, and we're not dumb enough to defend stupid decisions that this movie's made.
Yeah, like I can't force enough how much we're trying to tread the even ground here. We don't want to change your opinion. And we don't want to, like, if you didn't like the movie, you didn't like the movie. That's fine.
No one's gonna change that.
No.
It's just like when you have criticisms that aren't your own, or are like you're just saying something.
You're
you
don't have opinions. You're forcing statements that you just think are true.
All right, so those are two negatives. I'm gonna bring up a negative. A lot of people bring up the arcing turbo lasers.
Yeah, arcing turbo lasers.
Holy shit, that one always gets me to laugh. Because in the big scheme of things, if a turbo laser arcs in space, it's not going to make or break a movie, considering this is a fantasy sci-fi movie, and you're caring a bit too much. But I'm going to bring up a criticism for all the nerds out there, that or any Star Wars nerd out there that probably you had. Where the fuck were the fighters and bombers and that massive fleet of ships chasing them? Because if you're telling me that they did not have overwhelming fighter and bomber superiority with their 5, resurgent Star Destroyers and the supremacy that's 90 kilometers across, you're fucking full of shit. And we couldn't cover them from back then. You have 3 limping ships trying desperately to escape, running low on fuel, and you're telling me that like they're gonna be able to gun down the wings of fighters you're gonna swarm them with? No, I'm sorry. That was just lazy writing, and especially considering we've had other Star Wars movies showing what space fights look like. Look at the Revenge of the Sith opening fight scene, and that's how space battles should probably be presented. Even Rogue One, the space battle in that, very action packed, capital ships fighting, fighters fighting. And these space battles in this movie felt empty to me.
I would like to counter argue that statement because I get what you're saying. There was a lack of fighters. We had a good chunk in the beginning with that fight on the Dreadnought, and then we also had some at the end with that Salt Planet or whatever the hell planet that was with the fucking wolves or whatever the hell. However, I am okay with the lack of fighters because I understand that they tried to cover it their best by saying they had 3 of them out there when Kylo and his 2 lackeys were with them, and they said that you have to fall back, we can't cover you. All right, I'll accept that as a decision to not have fighters and the reason why they didn't have fighters. And I also I agree there was bad writing because if we did put the fighters out there, then they would have that whole arc of trying to get away from the first order would have been quick because they would have just flattened those cruise ships and their main cruisers. That's it. So I do agree that it was bad writing, but I can accept the bad writing. And we've talked about that. I want to move on to another thing that people bring up a lot. Well, not a lot, but I've seen it and I want to bring its attention. A lot of people argue that, okay, so they're following the resistance and they're running out of fuel. Oh, okay, they're going to catch up to them when they run out of fuel. And I bring this up because it leads into what I'm talking about later on. Okay, they're going to run out of fuel. Oh, we're going to catch up to them. And a bunch of you physics nerds out there are going to be like, oh, well, if they're moving in space, shouldn't they just continue moving at that speed? That's stupid. They should have thought of that. Well, here's the thing. In every Star Wars movie, what's the first thing we see? A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away. A galaxy that we don't know. It's made up. It's in a fantasy reality. We don't know how the laws of physics work in this galaxy that they're in. And I think and a lot of people bring up that and like get really mad about it. And I don't think it's all that big of a deal. Like, if they kept going at the same speed, then they would never catch and there'd be no impending danger. So therefore your story has no like drive. You know what I mean?
Well, here I think that's similar. It's like this. It's a different side of the same coin of what I brought up, in which it's just like, sure, they could have added that in to make it more realistic, but then they would have, like, for each consideration that they would have, like, oh, there's no fighters, okay, we gotta quickly write that out. Okay, why wouldn't they just continue moving forward? All right, we really can't be focused. Like, they're gonna have to continue to write a reason for everything, for every little nitpicky thing that people do, and you're just gonna have to accept, in the end, it's a movie, and they're not gonna pay attention to every small little detail. As much as they may bother me, letting it ruin your enjoyment of a movie is bad. But let's move on to the more serious topics, or like a more meaty topic. I really want to talk about Luke, because people's opinion of Luke on this movie have been
not the best.
Interesting.
Tell me about Luke.
Okay. Well, how do I put this? I think what they did with Luke ultimately served the movie incredibly well, and if it was anything else, or if they handled Luke differently, I don't think it. I think what people wanted was Luke to be this amazing hero that was like perfect and resolved and this like master Jedi, and I don't think that's we had that. Anyone who's a Star Wars nerd, or anyone who's spent the amount of time to read the books, because I know he hasn't read the books over here.
I have not.
We got Grandmaster Luke. We got the overpowered, like, strongest Jedi in the entire universe doing these crazy fucking things. We got all of that. He got married to Mara. He had a son, Ben. Like, all of this has happened, and no, sure, it's not canon, but we've had stories like this. And you have to fucking remember that this is Mark Hamill playing a live-action role of Luke. And say what you will, I fucking love Mark Hamill to death, but he's not going to be able to be the action hero doing all this shit. And you can say, oh, they can make it CG, but then you're going to bitch about it being CG Mark Hamill. So let's be honest with ourselves here. I think that people say they disrespected Luke, and I don't think they're really viewing it what the message why Luke was like that in the first place, because the whole message of the movie was failure.
Exactly.
And I think it's personified where like you have to admit that Luke's Jedi training was rushed.
Yeah, let me tackle this.
Go for it.
I like that. I've done research into this part. Think about it this way. Okay, Luke's not acting like a normal Jedi and blah, 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 and you're all arguing that point. All right, you can argue he's not being a normal Jedi. He's not being the traditional Jedi master that we're supposed to have. But then, let's look at it this way. He didn't have formal training. He trained on a swamp world for, 3 years with Yoda? And they had to, rush it, kinda. And he wasn't taught that normal Jedi have been trained since, 4 years old they get trained or some shit?
Yeah, they get kidnapped.
Yeah, they take him and they beat him in the basement. But
Almost.
pretty much. But that being said, they're taken from young children and they're not made masters until they're in their 40s, I think. Even how old was Anakin when he became a master? He was the youngest one.
He was the youngest one.
Yeah, and he was in his late 20s, early 30s, I think, give or take. I don't really know the exact age, but my point being that it takes years of disciplined training to master the mentality of a Jedi. He got this thrown at him in 3 years, and then his master died, and then he was the only one. And then books can only teach you so much. And he had a whole big mission. I have to retrain all these Jedi. I have to reinstate the Jedi Order. And then that got crumbled to the ground because of his failures. And
his first failure.
His first failure.
Let's look at how many times did Luke fail? Well, let's see. He got his hand chopped off and learned that Darth Vader was his father, spoilers. And then, after that, he was successful in the Return of the Jedi. He was the hero. He was the legend of Luke Skywalker.
Legend of Luke Skywalker.
Everyone looked at him. Everyone was like, wow, this he's a hero. He was beyond just immortal. They were raising him above to be this almost a godlike figure of Luke Skywalker who beat the Death Star, killed the Emperor, saved the universe. And then finally, his first real major failure came in the form of him screwing up his sister's and best friend's son and turning him into essentially a monster, turning him to the dark side, turning him against everyone. The path that Luke sent Kylo down was terrible. It was the worst possible failure he could have had. And sure, maybe a Jedi wouldn't have given up and continued, but I would argue that Luke really wasn't a traditional Jedi.
He wasn't. He didn't have formal training, and then they're trying to showcase that, and he didn't know how to handle it. That's why he went into exile, and we got this grumpy-ish old man that we got. I'm sorry, but he wasn't formally trained, and I don't mean to say this, but he's only human. He can only take so much. He was depressed. He wanted to go to an island and die because he didn't know how to handle his failures because he wasn't taught properly. That's why we got the Luke we got. And I don't mind the Luke we got. I enjoyed it, if anything, because it showed some realism to it was character development. He can't be happy-go-lucky Luke all the time, saving the world whenever he wants, you know? He's gonna have his down moments, and some are gonna be worse than others. And then he turned his nephew down the path of the dark side, and then all of his students got killed because of a decision that Luke made, and he couldn't handle it. That's why he left and went to exile.
Okay, to flip it, let's give some of the negatives we didn't like about Luke, which I will mention a few. And it actually ties into someone that I'm not a huge fan of either, and I kind of side with a lot of people with this. I do think that Rian Johnson had a particular vision of the movie he wanted to make without considering that he was also making a Star Wars movie. I think that's fair. I think the fact that they cut out the scene of Luke mourning for Han is terrible. The fact that Mark Hamill had to fight to just wink at C-3PO is a joke. And admittedly, the milk drinking scene didn't need to be in there, but it's not the end of the fucking world. And that one, I can't really side with some people on. That one's just you're getting a little too mad.
Yeah, they're getting mad because they left that scene in over the morning of Han or the third lesson and shit like that. That's why they get mad about it. But at the same time, it's not that big of a deal.
I guess to show how the director Ryan really wanted to probably show how Luke was a fallen hero and how far he had fallen. That's why those scenes were there. I do agree that, like, yeah, if you look at it like, oh, they cut the scenes for Han for that, but to be honest, I think they probably cut those scenes to add the Rose and Finn stuff in, less the milk drinking scene. And I am not going to debate people on whether they should keep the casino scene in, because I also think they should get rid of it. Anyways, is there anything else you want to touch about, Luke? Because I... Fuck.
No young Padawan.
I think the other thing I wanted to touch on was like I said, the whole theme of the movie was failure and failing and not being the heroes and not being these, like, everything works out perfectly.
And that's why Yoda came in.
To teach him that and hit him on the head with a stick and say, what the fuck's wrong with you?
Get your shit together.
It's like I never taught you how to deal with failure because I fucking died and became a Force ghost and then disappeared.
I never failed at anything.
Yoda failed a lot.
Yeah, he failed a fuck ton. Yoda knows failure. We can leave it that.
Okay, I mean, then we could bring up the Clone Wars show, but I think we could leave that.
No, don't worry
leave
about
that be. I think Yoda had some really good episodes in that, though. And if you haven't watched the Clone Wars, I'd highly recommend it. Sorry, there's plugging the Clone Wars in the middle of this. Sorry.
This doesn't have anything really to do with Luke, but this was more of a Rian Johnson problem. The third lesson. Why did they cut that?
Yeah, probably shouldn't have cut the third lesson.
Yeah, everybody was counting. Even I think Mark Hamill said it. They're all in the theater and they're counting. They're like, well, where's the last lesson?
Probably should have had that. But again, we acknowledge that there are definitely criticisms of this movie, but
we're not letting it get in the way.
You can't let it get in the way of just fucking enjoying a movie. I'm gonna quickly, before we get into the next thing, which I think we should probably swing in the Rey on this one next.
The Mary Sue shit.
Yeah, well, we'll get into that, but I'm gonna just quickly bring up the prequels, because a lot of people...
Bring them up. Go ahead.
Because, let's be honest here, the prequels are fucking flawed movies. I fucking love the prequels, and I almost like them better than the original trilogy in some cases. But the prequels are incredibly flawed. Are you fucking telling me that the apple pushing scene from across the table isn't the same as fucking Luke drinking milk? You really? Are you telling me that him rolling in the fucking fields with the terrible romance dialogue is as bad as, I don't know, Purple Hair Admiral not having good writing? Are you telling me like the entire thing, like the entire Phantom Menace isn't as bad and has about the exact same amount of flaws and similarities as The Last Jedi? Oh, Phasma's wasted? What about Maul? Huh? Think about it. The prequels are flawed, but people still enjoy them now because they've given it time and they don't want to just keep hating on the prequels over and over, and they're trying to look for the good in them now. And then right now people are just hate bonering for the fucking Last Jedi, and I understand to an extent, but like there are good parts of this movie that people are ignoring willingly.
I feel those good parts overshadow the bad. You can have the Leia floating through scene and you can hate it all you want, but in the end, let's look at this movie as a whole here. I still get emotional with that last scene of Luke fading away. The whole story coming to the conclusion of what actually was happening was so well put together, in my opinion. And I can say, and if you disagree, I'm sorry, something's wrong here. If you're gonna let one little thing like arcing laser shots, Leia flying through the space there, Rose and Finn's relationship, which you can obviously overlook. I don't even count that as part of the story.
Admittedly, I think that's actually kind of a decent criticism because, like, much like the prequels, you're gonna fast forward through those parts every other time you watch it.
Exactly. So I don't understand why everyone gets so like caught up in these little things that they're missing the big picture here. That we had a story to watch and listen to and understand. And you may not like the direction Luke Skywalker went in, but it had a complete circle where he did end up, he started off as a douche. And I liked that because it showed a different side to the character. It's called character development. And then he even came out a little bit and then trained Rey the best she can. Then saw that she was going down the same path as Kylo by communicating with him through that weird thing Snoke was having him do. Got pissed off again. They had a little fight. And then Yoda came in and then made him realize that failure is going to happen. And it's how you go off of failure that you learn. His response to that, I'm going to send a force projection to help them get away so that way they can save so that I can save what's left of the Resistance, because he knows they're going to shit.
Yeah, and give them hope. Give them the legend of Luke Skywalker one more time, so they can tell stories.
The thing they wanted was the legend, not him. He even said it, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, they don't want me. They want the legend of Luke Skywalker or whatever it was. It just. I think we've covered Luke. I think it's not wrong for you to not like the portrayal of Luke, but I think you have to appreciate why it was done. Let's talk about Rey now, though.
Let's talk about Mary Sue. I mean Rey.
Okay, here. Give me your view. I don't know. I don't think I've heard your opinion on Rey, and I want to hear it.
Just the character in general, or how they deal with her?
No, just give me the character.
I don't mind Rey. I think she's a good protagonist that can help this story move forward, because we know nothing of her. She's a good. I find the acting to be fine. I'm pretty sure I've heard people say that she's a terrible actress, which I don't really see.
No better than half the people in Star Wars admit. Like,
yeah,
let's be honest here.
I already know your opinion on her, so I'm trying to like dance around that. But I would say that Rey is a good character to have be the base of this story, because she's very mysterious and we don't know a lot about her, and that adds a lot. You can do a lot with that, and I think they're smart to go in that direction. I already know what you're going to say about her, so go ahead.
Well, hang on. I actually have a question for you.
What's your question?
Why do you think they call her a Mary Sue?
Why do I think they call her a Mary Sue? I think they call her a Mary Sue because, well, being a female role is obviously a big part in this, and her being called that, and it's because, yeah, look, did they show her having formal lightsaber training? No. Did she beat Kylo Ren without formal lightsaber training? Yes. Can she lift all those rocks in the ending of The Last Jedi without any formal Force training? Yes. But who cares?
Well, hang on. You can't just say who cares to that. You can't. That's not fair. And what I can say is you can justify those. I'll just quickly point out, in formal lightsaber training, you're dealing with a Kylo Ren that just killed his fucking father as an incredibly emotional and probably not in the correct state of mind on a massive space station about to explode. And she kind of just held her own, and also had Finn there to help her. And then in this movie, she really wasn't doing that much with a fucking lightsaber. And Kylo took out most of those fucking Royal Guards or Praetorian Guards or whatever they were. Like, Kylo did most of the heavy lifting on that. Like,
fought 3 at one time.
Like, Rey was mostly just being resourceful, because that's kind of her character. And in terms of the Force thing, I think it's kind of both Kylo and Rey are two of the most and Snoke are like the 3 most powerful Force users we've seen on screen. And I think the reason that Rey is so capable is just simply because she just has that natural talent, because she's supposed to be there to balance Kylo in terms of the Force, but that's a different thing. I do want to touch on the Mary Sue thing, and specifically why that's kind of stupid and a bad criticism. And I know that's may not be necessarily fair, but I'm going to, again, point at the other movies, because apparently people just don't like doing that. And Rey and Luke have the exact same amount of character development, and I would almost say that Rey's had just a tiny bit more than Luke had during the whole fucking original trilogy. Because Luke was a Mary Sue. Luke was just a boring fucking protagonist.
He was 100% a Mary Sue. 100%.
He was just a generic fucking hero. That's what he is. That's what Rey is. That's what these fucking stories are. Get the fuck over it. They're just heroes.
It's to move the story along. That's what it's for. It's to move it along, because they've spent... Yeah, he had that quick training session on the Falcon in the first movie, and then that's the only time he held the damn lightsaber until... What?
Hang on. Let me just quickly defend what I said, because I think I kind of left out something that I need to say some stuff about. Luke and Rey, let me compare these two, because I can't just say that and leave that. Luke was on a farm, got whisked away with Obi-Wan and Han, did a little bit of training with Obi-Wan, and then Obi-Wan died. There you go. That was Luke's first real growth right there. He destroyed the Death Star, became a hero, and then we see him again in Empire. He's a rebel fighting, and then he ends up, like, the next real development he fucking gets is when he goes to Yoda. But even then, when he gets to Yoda, he really just did some training, but never really grew too much besides the cave scene. But even then, like, he still made the mistake. Oh, I guess that's another mistake Luke made. He made the mistake and ended up going in finding out he's his father, and that was another huge growth until eventually we see him become this Jedi Master after more training with Yoda and going on and trying to turn his father because he had this amount of faith in him that you could turn Darth Vader to the good, etc. Let's look at Rey. Rey started off on a desert planet by herself, but this time with no parents, just on her own completely. She ends up getting whisked away with Han, and Han ends up serving as a father figure to her through most of the movie. She learns from him and shows that she's at least somewhat resourceful because of how long she was clearly on her own for. Then Han ends up dying at the end of the movie, and that was a huge piece of development for Rey once she found out. And then we go into the second movie, where she just wants to know who her parents were, why she's this powerful Force user, this completely, like, basically she was a, and this is not a good example, but she's basically someone's, like, fan fiction character that got shoved into the real universe, or just some rando who's just trying to figure out, I'm not a Skywalker, I'm not a Kenobi, I'm not anything. Well, she may be a Kenobi. We may find that out.
People get pissed off about that, too. They're always like, oh, what do you mean she doesn't hit? We don't know. Her parents are nobody? Oh, that's stupid. It's like, well, no, the thing is you guys wanted to know who her parents were and you got an answer. If you didn't like the answer, that's your fault.
Maybe if you didn't make so many fucking stupid-ass theory videos before The Last Jedi came out, you wouldn't have had expectations set at a certain point.
Yeah, we'll get to that after. We were talking about Mary Sue.
I'm not really sure how much more I could say about that, other than that Rey is a protagonist of a big franchise, and the fact that she just does things because she's a hero has nothing to do with her being a female character, and that's the major problem I have with the Mary Sue thing, is that I feel like, again, sorry, I don't mean to be that dude, but yeah, no, it's mostly because she's a female character, and it's pretty fucking clear cut when you see...
That's all it is.
Yeah, when you see the videos people make, the comments people leave, their opinions about it, and their refusal of any decent justification for her character, it's mostly that she's female. And like, look, I agree that a lot of SJWs are guys. I'm kind of with you on this. I think a lot of them are over touchy and shit like that. But like, dude, you guys are being fucking sexist, and you need to wake the fuck up.
It's 2018, man. That shit ain't gonna fly anymore.
It's the current year.
It's the current year. I wanted to bring up, you brought up Snoke, and I'm happy you did that because it reminded me. People are getting pissed off that Snoke got killed off, and I just want to say this really quick and get on, and then move on. There's one more movie. We don't know if he's dead yet. It's Star Wars. It's a fantasy world. We don't know what the hell's going to happen. There's a good chance he'll come back in some form or another. We don't know that yet. He's very strong with the Force. We don't know what'll happen. I just want to tell anybody who's pissed off that they think that Snoke was a waste of time. Just sit down and keep it in your pants, because we don't know what's going to happen yet.
He may come back as a Snoke ghost.
Yeah, as a Snoke ghost.
Yeah, no, Snoke dying midway through. Again, you wouldn't have been as mad about it if you didn't like watch a million theory videos about who Snoke was. Yep. So that's on you, bruh.
I think the last thing we should talk about, just to wrap this up, is pink-haired bitch.
Wait, hang on. We can't wrap it up yet.
Oh, well, what else you got?
Well, you're right. We should talk about pink-haired bitch.
All right, let's talk about pink-haired bitch. Admiral Halsey? Yeah, that's her name.
No. Halsey is a Halo character. I think it's Haldo.
Haldo. I'm sorry. I'm playing Halo 5 too much. That doesn't matter, though.
Don't play that game. This is the difficult one to tackle, because Jesus Christ, is there a lot to unpack with this, because it also ties in Poe, and it ties in a lot of this. You know, if we're gonna talk about Haldo, we're just gonna have to get into the people. Like,
I can debunk it right now.
Here, look, you go into it. I'm gonna get my words together.
Okay, so everyone has this problem with this movie, with this particular character relationship here. That this movie's just catering to feminists and trying to make all the white men look bad and all crap like that. You've all heard of it. If you're watching this, you've definitely heard all these banters before. I just want to point something out. Let's talk about what actually happened here. So Leia went down, and then Admiral Haldo, Vice Admiral Haldo, became in charge, and then Poe wanted to know what was going on. Her response to that was, "You're a captain now. I don't need to talk to you. Go at your post and wait for orders." Okay, whatever, fine. She's being a bitch. That's the point, though. And then later on, it gets worse, where he starts getting really aggressive about it. And the point is to make Poe look like the bad guy. That's the point. It's to make Poe look like the bad guy. Why is that? Not because this movie's catering to feminists. No, not at all. The point is because when we actually get to the plan and you, the audience member, look at it and you say, well, why didn't she tell him that they were going to fuel up the pods in the first place? And then they wouldn't be tracked because they're not looking for small aircraft like that. There you go. If you look at it that way, then she's the asshole. It's on her. It's not. No one's catering to feminism in this case. It's just a bad interaction between two characters, and you're looking at it like, oh, you made Poe look like a douchebag. Well, if you look at it in the other way, when it's all done, Poe is actually the hero here because he's just trying to find out what's going on, and she's not telling him. When if she just told him the whole time, we wouldn't have had that sideshow shit show with fucking Finn and Rose there on the casino planet. But if you didn't do that, then we wouldn't have had a whole extra part, and then we would have had two wasted characters. So that's why they did it. It's not to cater to feminism. It was to extend the story, have a second act going, and then ultimately show you, the audience member, that Poe was not the douchebag, and that this plan could have been taken care of properly if she just told him the plan. And she ended up sacrificing herself anyway, which people get probably mad at that for, because, oh, yeah, the women had to save the day. It's like, well, yeah, but in reality, did she really save the day? I mean, like, she did a fucking bold-ass move, which was brilliant, and it was a beautiful shot cinematically. But the point I'm trying to make is that when you look at it in the end, who came out on top? Poe. Not Vice Admiral Holdo. Poe did.
Okay, and just to play off that, I'm gonna say this, and I don't necessarily love the writing of Holdo, but let's look at Holdo and Poe as two characters and ignore their gender for just a second here. Alright, Holdo is a traditional military commander. She had clearly been around for quite some fucking time. And when you look at it, in her mind, she thinks that this hotshot pilot should just follow her command, and she doesn't feel the need to constantly keep him informed. Leia did, because Leia saw the potential in Poe of being a commander. And the journey that Poe went on was learning how to be a leader, how to properly be a commander. Holdo was already that traditional commander. She wasn't the future of this resistance, clearly. She was too stuck in her ways, and it shows. She's a very flawed character, almost on purpose in some ways. And here's the thing, if you think that's fucking feminism right there, the only reason you think that is because of the fucking purple hair. Because if she really was a feminist character, I feel like feminists would fucking hate her. Because she's stupid, and she does dumbass things. And she's too stuck in her ways, and she doesn't change. She's a terrible character to represent feminism in that case. The argument's retarded. She's written to be a not good commander because she wasn't going to make it through the movie. They needed to get rid of all the old parts of the resistance so they can move on and fight a new fight. The whole fucking point of the movie was let the past die. She was stuck in the past, and that's why she ended up passing. Sorry, that was bad. But I just think that people are in an echo chamber and they just refuse to take a step back and look at it. Because if you look at the characters as genderless, or you look at them as if it makes you feel more comfortable, if they're all male characters, you just have to accept that you may have a bias because they're female characters. And hiding behind a bunch of, can't see my air quotes, but logic isn't helping your case. You need to step the fuck back and really look at the whole picture and really look at the characters as a whole and not their gender. That's about all I had to say on that one. You have anything else to add about purple hair?
No, I think that's it.
Some people call her hair pink, and you're wrong.
More like a hot pink, maybe.
I don't know. It's more like a light purple.
Magenta.
Oh yeah, you know what, magenta. That's good.
I'll get the color scale out. We'll decipher this later.
All right. Do you think I'm gonna ask you this. Do you think it's fair for people, when the movie come out? January?
December.
And there are people on YouTube still making videos saying how the toy sales are down for some of these side characters that people don't like.
Just for perspective, the recording date of this is May 6th.
Yeah, no, it's been quite some time since the movie came out, and people are still stroking off their hate boners for the movie. And, like, that's the only reason we're even doing The Last Jedi. is because people just won't shut the fuck up about not liking the movie, because like if you didn't like the movie, you just would have shut up by now, because at this point you're just constantly trying to like get validation that the movie wasn't good, and I think that means you're very insecure about your opinions.
So the main point I want to give in Enjoy the Little Things is that we as a society need to take a step back and look at what we're doing before we do it. People are making incredible work cinematically, technology-wise, and every other field out there. And when you look at the response they're getting, it's overall negative. And it's just the dumbest things. This movie is a good example. It was a really good movie.
Hang on. It was an alright movie.
Alright. I enjoyed this movie.
I think it was ultimately more enjoyable than not enjoyable. I'm not gonna I really am trying to play the middle ground on this, because I don't love this movie.
No, it has its problems.
I like this movie, and I think overall it wasn't a bad Star Wars movie. It was a decent movie. It wasn't amazing, wasn't terrible. It fell in middle of the road.
Another message I want to clarify here is that things aren't as bad as they seem. You take a movie like this, yeah, it had problems. Wasn't perfect at all. But you're taking those problems and you're magnifying them to the point where it's unreasonable.
You were blowing things out of proportion.
Yes. Sure, there's debatable topics. Luke's role in the movie, the story of the movie, the whole actual presentation of the movie was completely different from any Star Wars movie we had. It was a lot more serious. There was only one fight scene. A friend of mine actually said that he wanted a lightsaber fight and that he didn't like the Luke Kylo Ren fight.
So, I think what we're saying is that you're not wrong for not enjoying The Last Jedi. You're not. But look at why you don't like The Last Jedi and give it some thought, because I'm going to tell a quick story to end this. And it's one that I hold close because it really mattered to me. I went to go see Rogue One in theaters when it first came out, and I hated it. I fucking hated Rogue One because I hated all the nostalgia baiting. I didn't like The Force Awakens. I despised The Force Awakens. And in reality, that was my attitude towards a lot of other things around me. I couldn't enjoy movies. The newest albums that came out, I couldn't listen to. I didn't like any of the TV shows going around. Every video game I played sucked. I hated all the people I was talking to. That's not true, but I just threw that in there. And I left Rogue One hating it. And then a couple months later, I started thinking, why didn't I like Rogue One? The nostalgia, was the nostalgia baiting that bad? So I went back and I watched it again, and because I had the day off, I ended up watching Rogue One and A New Hope back to back. And what I saw was that it was a really good movie. And I went into Rogue One wanting to hate it. That's what I realized. I went into Rogue One not wanting to like the movie, and it showed. Because when I watched it again, it's one of my favorite Star Wars movies. It was such a love letter to the original trilogy. All the nostalgia baiting, which I can understand people not liking, honestly, but like it was there for a reason. It had purpose. And the other things I didn't like about the movie, I ultimately realized were just very minor. And that when I said that I hated Rogue One, I didn't even really know why. And now, like, this fast forward quite some time, and I still try to be as critical as possible with things, but when my criticism starts genuinely affecting my enjoyment, I try to take a step back and really look at the whole picture, and then start listening to things I liked about the movie. Because ultimately, you should want to like things more than you should want to hate things, and I think that's the problem with society today, is people are so willing to hate things, and it's like, dude, just relax, enjoy. There's not enough good things happening now that if you're trying to hate everything, you're not gonna get anywhere.
You're just hurting yourself.
You're just hurting yourself. Anyways, I wanted to share that story. It was the abbreviated version. There's a lot more going into a lot more moving cogs and wheels in that story, but it's important to me because just try to be a bit more positive. Your life will just ultimately be just a tiny bit better. Also, stop being sexist.
I think the point we're trying to make here is that we want all of you listening to keep an open mind. You go into these movies or play these games or watch these shows and your opinion is just so forward immediately. You're not taking the time to think about it. We want you to take the time, understand what you're saying before you make videos or make that post. You know what I mean? Just try to enjoy the little things. That's really our point of what we're trying to do. If you didn't agree with us, you don't have to agree with us. If anything, I don't want you to agree with us. I want you to take what we're saying and maybe work on yourself. Cause
that's like talking down to him. I don't think we should say that.
And cut that part.
No, we can leave that in. That's not genuine. But no, we just think about what we said. You can immediately shut us down because we don't agree with you, but like that's
fine.
That's fine. You can hate us. That's also fine. We can take it. Trust us.
I don't want you to change your opinion over the things we say. I just want you to open your mind a little bit to what we're saying and maybe look at things a different way so you can enjoy stuff a little bit more. On that note, I think it's a good time to stop.
All right, well, this has been Jared.
And this has been Steve, and enjoy the little things.